hope everyone is well. Hope everyone is doing good. We took a hiatus, but we're back now. I have this particular subject in my notebook, and I've been, flipping through this for a while. I think that I didn't have an extensive amount of information. I didn't want to weigh on one side or it come off, it was abrasive. But I think it's an experience that we've all gone through, whether it is the past, you're presently going through it, or it's going to happen to you in the future. And it's the uncomfortableness in friendship when envy and jealousy began to show up. And that's such a sensitive topic because many of us find ourselves questioning whether someone that we consider a friend is actually jealous or envy. And the uncomfortableness goes. And when we are not wanting to say the obvious thing out loud. Friendships are founded by these commonalities, these shared interests. We bond over events and life occurrences, family ties, and sometimes by simply meeting one another through happenstance. And as you know, friendships endure various stages of growth, uncomfortableness, and transitions, but one thing many of us know so well is the uncomfortableness in friendship when it turns from love to these moments of envy, also riddled in side comments, cutting commentary off when we have celebratory moments that are shared, or that strange feeling that you can't quite put your finger on when you begin noticing that every time something good happens in your life, the room gets very, very quiet when you start to speak. And I think this is why this particular conversation can become difficult, because I don't know too many people who can go into a friendship expecting that one day, they may have to question whether somebody that they genuinely love is having a difficult time being happy for them. And that's not where any of us puts our mind. We expect our friends to be the people we can call with good news, the people who know what we've been through, who know what it costs us to get where we are, and who understand that, what we've been celebrating isn't to make them feel any type of way. It's something shared. And sometimes we sit in those spaces and recognize that there's a different type of energy there. But here's a caveat. I thought perhaps, people are open to feeling just how they want to feel. Envy and jealousy is a natural feeling, and every human at some point will do it. But it's not your responsibility to show the people who have begun to treat you unfair. And that's why it can be so confusing when you begin noticing the little things that don't seem important by themselves, but after a while, they become very difficult to ignore. I have the saying, I cannot unsee what I've seen, right? I cannot untouch what has touched me. And I'm not going to keep making excuses for something that I feel in my spirit, because I know deep down in my soul, this ain't it. And so then the question becomes, how do you know if it's jealousy? And I don't think that there's one answer to that, because people are complicated. Everybody who doesn't celebrate you is not jealous of you. Everybody who seems distant isn't envious of you. Sometimes people are tired, things that they carry are heavy. Sometimes, they're carrying some things that we know nothing about. And I think that we have to leave room for that, because all of us are going to have seasons where we don't show up the way that we normally would. But at the same time now, I don't think that we should spend so much time extending grace to everybody else that we stop paying attention to what we've been consistently experiencing ourselves. And there's a difference between giving somebody grace and constantly talking yourself out of what you've been noticing. For me, it has never been about one conversation. It has never been about one comment or somebody forgetting to congratulate me at one time. It's when I find myself having the same conversation with myself over and over again. It's when I keep leaving these interactions with people that I call friends, wondering why something didn't sit right with me. It's when I start making excuses for things that never required an excuse in the first place. It's like when I notice that I'm becoming more comfortable talking about what may be going wrong in my life, even if it's minor. Because I don't want to disturb someone's placement of what happiness looks like for them. So I'll lower the way in which my conversations are maintained. And honestly, I don't know too many people who would sit across, the table from their friends and say, I'm having a hard time being happy for you. Most people aren't going to say that, and sometimes they may not even recognize that that's what they're feeling. All they know is that something has changed, and instead of asking themselves why, the friendship just keeps drifting further and further apart. And then the other part of that is, when you realize that things are going awry and then you decide to say something, that's uncomfortable as well. Because most of us don't bring these conversations up after one incident. By the time we have opened our mouths, we spent months replaying conversation and questioning ourselves and making excuses and hoping we're wrong. Because the last thing we want is to believe that a friendship that we invested in is changing. But when you finally say, something feels different, you're usually not talking about one day. You're talking about something that you've been observing over and over again. To add to that, I think another reason this conversation can be uncomfortable is because we reduce jealousy and envy to mean people who hate us. And I don't believe that that's always the case. I met people who genuinely loved their friend and still struggled with watching their life change. Those two things can exist at the same time. You can love somebody and still wrestle with comparison. You can love somebody and still find yourself, asking questions about your own life because theirs seems to be moving in a direction you thought yours would have done by now. That doesn't make the behavior acceptable, but I do think it helps us understand why some friendships become strained. Comparison has a way of making people lose sight of their own journey because they're so focused on someone else's timeline. Maybe you've been praying for a marriage while your friend just celebrated an anniversary. Maybe you've been trying to have children while your friend is announcing a pregnancy. Maybe you've been submitting applications for months. Or somebody just got accepted to the job that they've been praying for. There's a whole list of maybes. Life has a way of putting us in situations where we have to learn how to celebrate people while we're still waiting on our own lives to change. And emotionally healthy people can acknowledge those feelings without allowing those feelings to dictate how they treat somebody else. They don't punish their friend because they're disappointed with their own season. They don't become distant because someone else is moving. They don't start, minimizing another person's accomplishment because they are discouraged about their own journey. They take responsibility for what's happening inside of them. That's emotional maturity. The friendships that usually survive are the ones where both people are willing to do that kind of work. Because, my baby, if we are not careful, we'll start assigning, blame to the person whose only mistake was continuing to grow. Sometimes the friend who is being envied has absolutely no idea what's going on. They still calling, they still checking in, they still, inviting their friends to dinner, doing dinner dates, a brunch. We love a brunch. And they're still sending encouraging messages, and they don't even realize that something has shifted. Meanwhile, the other person has slowly started to pull away. That's why I tell people to be careful about assuming every friendship ended because somebody did something wrong. Sometimes the friendship changed because one person kept growing, while the other person stopped tending to what was happening within themselves. And here's where I think we have to be careful as well. If you found yourself identifying with the person who's struggling to celebrate someone else, don't allow shame to keep you right there. We all have things we need to work through. We all have the moments where life exposes an area in us that still needs healing. The question isn't whether something, came up. The question is what you choose to do once you recognize it, because I don't believe friendships are destroyed by feelings. I believe they are destroyed when those feelings are left unattended long enough to become a behavior. And again, every time I think about enviness or jealousy, in friendship, I always come back to this sentiment. Not every friendship is supposed to last forever. And I know that's very difficult for a lot of people to hear because we put so much value in history. We think because, we've known somebody for 10, 15, 20 years, that history alone should be enough to keep the friendship together. But history and health are not the same thing. Just because we've been friends for a very long time doesn't automatically mean that we're still good for one another, because, people grow. People change, life changes, responsibilities change, priorities change, and sometimes what held a friendship together in one season isn't enough to sustain it in the next one. I think where we get ourselves in trouble is trying to hold people to who they used to be while ignoring who they become. And personally, I've learned, that everybody doesn't have the capacity to go where you're going. And that isn't, it doesn't make them a bad person. Sometimes they've reached the end of what they can offer you in a relationship. Sometimes life has taken the two of you in different directions. Sometimes the friendship has simply run its course. That doesn't, erase the years. It doesn't erase the memories. It doesn't erase the love that may have genuinely existed. It just means something, and this dynamic has surely changed. And I don't know that, we do a good job with talking about it. We know how to grieve the end of a marriage. We also know how to grieve the loss of someone that we love, but I don't think that we've been taught how to grieve the ending of a friendship that's still attached to some living memories. Because every now and then you'll hear a song and think about your friend. You'll drive past a restaurant, the two of you used to go to, and you think about that friend. Something funny will happen, and in a split second you want to pick up that phone, but you remember, perhaps you do not have that friend, and you do not share those moments, and y'all are not as close as you used to be. Those moments are real. And I don't think we talk enough about trying to go through the transition of the uncomfortableness of that. And in friendships that have severed because of the uncomfortableness and jealousy and envy, sometimes the healthiest thing that you can do is accept that the friendship isn't what it used to be, without needing to convince the other person that you're right about why it changed. And I think that's a hard lesson for all of us. We want people to understand our perspective. We want them to acknowledge what we experience. We want them to say, you know what, you're right, I did change. And sometimes, people are open and honest after conversations take place, and they say exactly what they've been feeling. But a lot of times it doesn't happen. And if your healing depends on somebody else validating your experience, you may find yourself waiting a very, very long time. I've learned that acceptance will often give you the peace that validation never will. Because, acceptance will allow you to appreciate what this friendship meant to you, and still recognize that it no longer fits where both of y'all are. But if you're presently in this situation and you feel like it's time to have a conversation, I'd like to encourage you to lead with what you've been observing instead of what you have concluded. You don't have to sit your friend down and say, I think you were jealous of me. Because, the truth is, once, that word enters the conversation, most people are going to become defensive before they even hear your heart. So instead, you may want to try something like, can I share something with you that's been on my mind? I could be wrong, and that's what, why I wanted to talk to you instead of making assumptions. I've been noticing that our conversation feels a little different, especially when I share certain things about my life. I don't know if you are holding something that I don't know about, or if I've done something to make you pull away, but I wanted to ask because our friendship means enough to me that I'd rather have an uncomfortable conversation and continue pretending that I don't notice the distance between us. And then, you let the silence be what it is. Give that person the room to respond. Don't interrupt them. Don't go into the conversation, with another point trying to prove, why you are right. Just go into the conversation trying to understand your friend. And if they're willing to talk, then you listen. If they tell you that they've been, holding on to something, that they've been carrying something, I need you to make room for that. If they tell you that they've been hurt, or that you hurt them in ways that you perhaps didn't realize, I need you to sit with that and make room for that too. But if the conversation, immediately turns into dismissing everything that you shared, making you feel like you're the crazy one from bringing it up, or refusing to acknowledge anything that you've been experiencing, don't spend all of your energy trying to convince someone that your observations are real. The healthy friendships make room for very, very difficult conversations. They don't require one person, to silence what they've been carrying just to avoid making the other person uncomfortable. Sometimes a conversation brings healing. Sometimes it brings clarity. And sometimes, it just perhaps give you the confirmation you needed to understand that friendship has changed. And none of those outcomes by any stretch of the imagination are easy. But every one of them gives you something you can move forward with instead of continuing to carry questions that you never asked. I also think that we need to change the way that we think about jealousy and envy, because somewhere along the way, we keep convincing ourselves that people are only jealous of the things that they can see. We hear the word jealous and we immediately, correlate that with money and cars, houses, careers, or any material possession. And that's really a narrow way of looking at it. Some people aren't jealous of what you have. Sometimes they're struggling with who you are. They're struggling with the way that people naturally gravitate you, the peace that you work so hard to have, contain, hold, express, the confidence that you develop after years of questioning yourself, the way you communicate, the way you carry yourself, the relationships that you've built, the discipline that you committed yourself to. Maybe it's the fact that you seem comfortable being exactly who you are. Those are the kinds of things you can't hand to somebody. And maybe that's why, it becomes so difficult to process. I think that's why so many people spend years, or reiterating this phrase saying, I don't have anything for anybody to be jealous of, because they're only measuring what they own instead of recognizing that envy often has very little to do with possessions. But it can be your personality. It can be your influence, your ability to connect with people, the way you make others feel, your resilience after everything that you survived that people didn't think that you should have, the fact that you found peace where everybody else is still searching for it, the opportunities that seem to find you, the confidence to walk away from what no longer serves you. There are so many things people can compare themselves to that have absolutely nothing to do with materials, possession, and that's why I think it's important, again, that we stop trying to convince ourselves that our life isn't good enough for someone else to envy. The truth is, we don't get to decide what another person struggles with. We don't get to determine what causes someone else to compare their life to ours, because comparison has everything to do with what's happening inside of them and very little to do with what we're intentionally trying to project. Understanding that helped me stop asking, what do I have that anybody would be jealous of me of? And I need you to start telling yourself that as well. It's not about the material possessions many times. Sometimes comparison can be the death of many people. The better question is, what is somebody else wrestling with that causes them to see my life through the lens of comparison? Take a breath. Before we end this conversation, I want to leave you with this, because I never want, an episode like this to make anybody start looking at every friendship through the lens of any form of suspicion. That's not my heart, and I don't think that's healthy either. The point of this conversation isn't to convince you that everybody around you is jealous of you. The point is to remind you that healthy relationship should feel safe. And sometimes you cannot unsee what you have seen. You cannot unfeel something that you have feel. And you don't have to hide pieces of your life just to keep a friendship comfortable. I've said this before and I still believe it. Healthy relationships don't require you to become less of yourself just so somebody else can feel more like themselves. You shouldn't have to make your accomplishments sound smaller. You shouldn't have to apologize for answered prayers. You shouldn't have to downplay, these opportunities that you work so hard because you're worried about somebody and how they're going to receive them. The people who genuinely love you may not always understand your journey, but they should always want good things for you. There have been seasons where you've been celebrating, and there have been seasons where you've been waiting. There have been times when, we were the ones sharing good news, and there have been times when we were trying to figure out why everybody else's life seemed to be moving while ours felt that it had to come to some form of standstill. And if you ever been in that season, you know how easy it is to start comparing. Comparison is human. Staying there is a choice. If I'm struggling with somebody else's blessing, then that's my invitation to spend more time with myself and ask myself, why is that bothering me? Not because I want to shame myself, but because I don't ever want my unresolved disappointments to become somebody else's burden to carry. I don't want the people I love to feel like they have to hide their happiness from me. I want them to know that they can call me when they get engaged. They can call me when they're finna buy a house. They can call me when they're, getting a promotion. They can call me when the business finally takes off. They can call me when life starts making sense again. And they'll never have to worry whether I'm secretly, hoping things don't work out. That is not the friend that any of us should be. So maybe today's conversation in totality isn't about recognizing envy in other people. It's perhaps the opportunity for all of us to take ourselves and ask ourselves whether we allow comparison to change the way that we show up for people that we love. We have to ask the tough questions. Have I become harder to celebrate with? Have I become less encouraging? Have I become so consumed with what I don't have that I've stepped and stopped appreciating what God has already placed in my hands? I've learned that uncomfortable questions usually lead to answers. And honest answers give us the opportunity to grow. If this episode made you think about a friendship that's changed, I don't want your response to be anger. I really want you to, your first response to be riddled in wisdom. I want you to pray before you assume. I want you to pay attention before you accuse and give people grace, but don't ignore what's consistently been sitting in front of you either. You can do both. And if you're grieving a friendship that isn't what it used to be, I want you to know it's okay to grieve it. It's okay to miss what the two of you had. It's okay to thank God for what the friendship gave you without pretending it hasn't changed. Some people will walk with us for a lifetime. Some people will walk with us for a season. Neither one makes the relationship a failure. Sometimes people simply, complete the part of their journey they were meant to walk with us, and that's okay. My baby, I hope you find friendship where your joy is never treated like a threat. I hope you find friendship where your growth is never mistaken, my baby, for competition, and where your name is spoken with the same type of love when you're absent as it is when you are present, because those kind of friendships, my baby, they still exist. It may not be many, but they're worth praying for, they're worth protecting, and when God places those people in your life, they're worth becoming that kind of friend in return. Yes, all right, so I want to make an announcement, from the floor. I am currently still touring many cities. I will say that this experience has been eye-opening. It has been kind. It has been beautiful. It's been an unfolding. I've met so many people. I've had conversations with so many people. I've done meet and greets after the poetry shows, and just the engagement with people in their hearts, and being able to see a person face to face. To me, that's what it's all about. So the duration of the dates that I have, they are City Winery affiliated, and I know that when I have posted where I will be, many of you on the West Coast was like, y'all, you just forgot about me. I've had shout outs from Detroit, Charlotte. I see y'all. I want to make this, very clear that many of the opportunities that were given were City Winery affiliated places. And so once one was opened, it opened up for the other places. And so I'm very mindful, as you guys are commenting in the places that are common, that in 2027 I'll definitely will be going to the West Coast, and all of these other places that you guys have been saying, hey, bring a poetry show this way. I have not ignored or, forgotten you. Again, these shows are city winery affiliated, and so wherever there's a city winery is where I have been popping up for this first ever show. And by the date of this podcast episode, we do have we have a show in Houston. It was originally scheduled for the 12th. That one was sold out, and so there is an opening for July 11th, and it is limited seating for this one. The next show is in Atlanta. That is August 6th and 7th, Atlanta. I need y'all to show up for me, my babies. This is the third and fourth show of Atlanta. This was my first show in my home state of Georgia. And when I say that y'all gave me nothing but love, encouragement, hugs, and everything, and it was a dynamic show. And so August 6th and 7th, I will be back in Atlanta. And I cannot wait, my babies, to feel the seasoning over there. The next one is Philadelphia. That is August 16th. Then New York is August 18th, and we come back to Philadelphia August 19th. Closing out the show is St. Louis on September 13th, Chicago September the 14th, and Boston September the 15th. I'm excited. Listen, Atlanta is a return, Philadelphia is a return, and Chicago and St. Louis are return cities. So I definitely will be adding them to the roster for 2027 as well. And I have to humbly say that the repeat cities were definitely the places in which I just found and met kind people who understood the metaphorical ways in which I write poetry, and they gave a different type of seasoning every city that I went. So thank you so much. So the upcoming cities, please ma'am, please sir, if you have the time in your schedule, please be in attendance, my babies. And of course, you can purchase your tickets at www.seasoneddialogue.com. Also, if you need a morning reset, every week I have Gentle Hours with Lisa Marie. That's every Monday. I normally post to YouTube around 7:15. There is a delay between the time in which it is posted on the podcast and YouTube. But either way, if you need a reset for your week, if you need some intentional words, some intentional phrases, every Monday, go and follow the podcast Gentle Reminders. It normally lasts between 8, maybe 10, 15 minutes. I think 15 minutes has been the longest, but it's just setting the intention for the week, grounding us, and really making note of where we are. Because, we are in this space where we got to show up for us, and the world cannot grab us before we move and leave the door. All right, my babies. Talk to you next time.